after graduating BE Computer Science. Then I started as a full stack developer, and I've learned many programming languages. As in when the programming languages trend changes, there was a necessity to learn new languages, right? So over years, I've learned different technologies. A few technologies have become completely outdated, right? So in the field of computer science or the technologies, we have to keep ourselves updated. Otherwise, we'll be pushed back. It is very important to stay updated with the trend, right? And today's ultimate goal is to deliver a full stack development course in 2 hours. Okay, a lot of people have a lot of questions like, what is full stack development? How would it benefit me in my career, right? So, which technology should I learn? There's a very limited guidance. A lot of people talk about full stack technologies. People say you study React, go for Angular, or go for Python, go for Node.js, .NET, Java. Several technologies. Students and people coming from non-tech backgrounds are very much confused to which roadmap to pick. There are several roadmap and strategies laid out, right? Today, for the next 5 minutes, I'll talk about which technologies to choose and why, right? Okay, fine. See, today I specifically chose Angular and Node.js along with the Postgres database, right? Because these are very trending in the industry. Okay. You may ask, why not React? React is very popular and very much trending. Why did you pick up Angular.js? Right? The first thing is that we could also do React, but a lot of people talk about React today. If you open YouTube, you have a lot of channels that speak about React, but there are very limited channels that speak about Angular. Why? Because Angular is used in enterprises. React is not. See, React is very fast. It is performance oriented. It is, a very fast rendering frame library, but it isn't a framework. Unlike Angular, Angular is a full-fledged framework. Let's say tomorrow you get placed in one of the MNCs, right? You will be put into the React project if the project is small to mid-sized. But if the project is very huge, let's say the project has some hundreds of pages inside it, and you want all the necessary tools without depending on the third packages, right? Then you will be put into the React project. You will start building Angular applications there. React won't be used. Let's see the use cases of React and Angular first. Okay, let's say you want to build a very small website, you'll go for React. Or if you want
Ashik,
to build, yeah,
excuse, Ashik, are you sharing your screen?
I
I
am
see one.
sharing. Are you not?
I'm seeing only your Zoom. I'm seeing only your Teams screen.
All
Okay,
right.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine. Okay.
So
Yeah.
this is what I wanted to show. Thank you for reminding. So you want to build a mid-sized e-commerce application where user can come and check out products. You want to make payment gateway, you go for it. But if you have inter-region application, for example, your company is located in say about 10 countries, and you have about let's say 1,000 concurrent users, right? And you want all the tools built inside one software, then you go for Angular, because Angular is a framework. It is not a library like React. It has all the modules necessary to build an enterprise application, right? So we'll talk about Angular today. Fine. So that's a quick introduction. Now I'll talk about what full stack development is, right? So traditionally, what was there was a front end developer, right? And there also was a back end developer, and there also was a database developer. Okay. And on top of that, they also had the DBA, database administrator, right? In order to deliver a full-fledged application in big companies, they used to have the front-end developer, back-end developer, the database developer, and on top of that will be sitting a DBA, database administrator. Companies used to pay a lot. Let's say this company is paying 50,000 rupees for the front end developer, 50 to the backend, 50 to the DBA, the database developer, and 50,000 to the database administrator, right? So the company is on overall company is paying 2 lakh rupees per month to manage all of them. And there'll be separate managers for each group. For the front end developer, there will be a separate manager who will be getting another 50K. And there's a manager for the backend team, there's a manager for database team, and there is a manager for the DBAs. The managers costing are very high. They'll be getting 2 3 lakhs, right? Because of their experience. So companies had to manage such a huge hierarchy in their company that ultimately became a liability to them, because why do you pay so much when there is one person who can do all of these? Let's say today you become a full stack developer, you can do the front end development, you can do the back end, you can do the DB, right? So DBA is really necessary because developers don't usually work on the database administration process. We focus on the development alone. So here what happens is, for them, you let's say that instead of spending 1,50,000 rupees on three separate developers, company would be very much happy to spend only 1 lakh on you and save 50,000 rupees. Also, there'll only be one manager here who will be monitoring you. So full stack development manager will get his own share of money, right? So companies really wanted to eliminate these kind of dependencies and manage with one developer, right? So this is called as full stack developer, right? Even I still remember during my first job in the interview, they asked me if you want to become a front end or a back end developer. So I was really confused. I didn't know what front end is, what back end is. Later, I came to the realization that this is how companies work. But as trend changed in 2015, the trend started changing. People wanted to, become competitive, and they want to compete in the interviews. What they did, the person who knew front end also learned back end. He also wanted to learn database, and then he became a full stack developer, right? So companies are hunting for full stack developers rather than a dedicated front end or a back end or a database developer. Got it? Because companies can pay less and they'll have less people to manage under them. Got it? Okay, all right, fine. Now, since this is a webinar, we'll not go in detail on each topic, okay? Because we have to complete the project, a real-time chat application in 1 hour and 30 minutes or less than that, okay? We'll quickly go through the process involved in a full stack development, right? So let's say that you're a user accessing an application from a computer, okay? So this is a user. Now, there is a website you're accessing on this computer, right? This computer is making a request to a domain, let's say facebook.com. Okay, this is facebook.com server, correct? Facebook.com loads on your computer. Two things happen. First is the user interface, what you see. Second is the interactivity with the servers, right? So Facebook server has two other modules. Let's call this module as the UI. There's another module which is your middleware. This is where your business logic goes. All the security, authentication, your profile information, data containers, everything go into this middleware project. Okay. And then we also have a database. We have a database container here. We'll call this DB, right? So the process is like this. When facebook.com loads, it first loads the UI. Okay, and then UI is dependent on the data. Let's say you have logged into Facebook and you see your Facebook wall, you see all the latest posts shared by your friends, and there are recommendations as well, right? So that data is dependent on the middleware here. So data flows from the middleware to the UI process, which is then displayed onto the user screen. Now, this middleware only has the business logic, it doesn't have data. Then it is dependent upon the database to fetch data for the user, right? So this is the entire customer flow or the user flow in any kind of application, right? So we essentially call this as a three-tiered application. The first tier is the user interface. The second tier is the middleware, where all your business logic, encryption, data security, or data normalization, REST APIs, everything goes into your middleware. And this middleware, based on the user's request coming from the computer, it fetches data from the database, processes it, data segregation, data aggregation, everything happens on the server. Then the structured data is sent to the UI, and the UI will bind the data into necessary sections on the UI for you to view. This is the entire full stack development user flow. All right. Any questions here? I'll quickly head over to the chat. If you have any questions, I'll answer. All right, no questions.
Sir,
Yeah,
sir, sir, you can explain the
yeah, go
diagram
ahead.
simply one more time, sir.
All right, okay. See, now let's say that you're opening facebook.com, okay? All you see is your Facebook wall, okay? Facebook wall in sense, the Facebook's landing page. Then what happens is the application is built in three tiers. The first is the user interface that loads. What do you see in your page? You see all the colors, you see the fonts, you see the layout of the application. On the left hand side, you have navigation. On the right hand side, you see chat bar. And in the middle, you see all your feeds, videos, pictures, and everything else, right? So that is the user interface. It's only the block of designs. It does not have data by default. Once Facebook page loads, right, the browser will send a request to the middleware, okay, saying that, look,
Okay, sir.
this particular user has logged into the computer, fetch all the details related to this user. So basically, this user information is stored as cookies on the browser when you authenticate. Okay, this cookie information is sent to the middleware. Now the middleware will know who the user is, right?
It
Now
is for
based
security
on your
purposes, sir.
exactly
Middleware.
cookie, middleware is
Okay,
not
sir.
security purpose. Middleware is like the postman.
Okay, sir.
Okay, middleware is a postman which brings data from the database and sends it to the UI as requested. If the UI is asking for profile information, middleware will know who the user is from the cookie information. Based on that user information, it will go fetch data from the database, bring it back here. It will structurize the data and give it back to the UI as requested. Let's say for UI, we are going to use Angular here. Okay, using HTML,
Yeah.
CSS, and Angular, we are going to build the UI. And in the backend, we are going to use Node.js. You are free to use Python. You are free to use Java, or you're free to use .NET. Any programming language will work in the backend. Okay. And database, there are several databases. You know, Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, SuperDB. You have MongoDB, Cassandra. There are several flavors of database. You can pick whichever you want, depending upon your use case. This is the high level flow. Is that clear?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
So
Fine,
today,
clear,
yeah.
sir.
So
Thank you.
today, what we'll do? Today we will build a chat application in our UI. We will use Tailwind CSS to design our application. When the design is ready, we'll head over to a backend, which is Node.js here. In our case, it is Node.js. We specifically use a framework called Express and a module called WebSocket for real-time message transfer, just like WhatsApp. Messages are instantly reached to the server and the UI, right? And for the database, if we have time, I'll use Postgres. Otherwise, we'll go with SQLite. Okay. So this will be our tech stack for today. All right. Now let me quickly jump to the project. See, and one more thing is that this webinar will vastly benefit you if you stay until the end of the program. Okay, so for the next 1.5 hours, we'll be looking into the design and development and database schema designs. Okay, this will give you a high level idea of what a full stack development is, and it can, pave a way to your tech journey here, right? So I request you to stay until the end of this program. All right. Okay, let me quickly head over to Webstorm. And you don't have to code along with me. This entire uh, session is recorded, and this recording will be shared over to you on WhatsApp group. Okay, you don't have to develop along with me because I'll be doing a little bit fast. I'll be just explaining things how they work. Okay, you can practice it yourself watching the video later. I'm going to use WebStorm. WebStorm is specifically designed for an IDE designed for JavaScript applications. All right. So you can use VS Code if you're very much comfortable with it. For beginners, I would recommend going with VS Code. VS Code is open source. You don't have to pay for it. I'm specifically using WebStorm because I've been using WebStorm for over years, right? Fine. First thing, what I'm going to do is I am going to create a new directory on my system. If you're working on Windows, you can simply right click, go to new and create a directory there. I'll call it chat app. And after creating this directory, I'm going to open this project in my IDE. Chat app is a project here. Fine.
Excuse me, brother. Can you make the font size in your terminal a little bit bigger so that it is viewable by all? Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, and let me also do it here. Right, fine. So I've opened the chat app. Under VS Code, you can head over to your terminal. You will have a new terminal here. And under my, make sure that you are under the chat app directory that you just created. Now I'm first going to create an Angular app. Okay, for that I need Node.js. After installing Node.js, you can simply head over to Node.js download here, and you can download for Windows if you want, right? After installation, you'd be able to verify if the installation was successful. Just write node-v. That should give you the version number. I'm using a little bit older version. The latest stable version is 22. You should be able to see that. You should also do an npm-v. That should also give you a version number. Node is a Node.js software. npm is a Node package manager, right? So it has all the third-party libraries that we'll be using. It's like a repository. Okay. So now I have verified that I need the tools I need are already installed on my computer. Okay. Along with that, you also need to install Angular here. Head over to the Angular dev site and head over to the doc section. There, under installation, you have a method to install using this npm package that you just installed, right? Copy this and run it onto your terminal. This will install Angular CLI. So what is CLI? CLI is a command line interface, which will let you create project through commands. Okay, that makes life very easy. So once the installation is successful, just write ng version. That will give you the version of Angular installed. Angular 19 is the latest version, and we have it installed. With this, we'll be able to create a new Angular app. To create a new Angular app, you just write ng new command and then your project name. We'll call this project as chat UI. Hit enter. It will ask you to pick a flavor of styling what you want. Like there's a basic CSS. I hope everyone knows what CSS is. And then we have a framework of CSS. Okay. I will stick with SAS for now. Okay. SAS is a framework of CSS. It's very advanced. You can write functions in that CSS, right? And then it's asking if you want server-side rendering. This is an advanced concept. We don't need it right now. I'd say no. and then the scaffolding happens. So what is scaffolding? Angular CLI is setting up the project for you so that we don't have to create everything from scratch. It'll take some time depending on your computer speed. Fine. Okay. My project is set up. If I expand this chat app here, I'll be able to see this chat UI. Just ignore this .idea. Okay. So if you're working on VS Code, there will be a .vs Code directory. You will not disturb it. You will not delete it. You will not open it. You'll leave it as it is. Expand chat UI. You will be able to see a set of directory structure here. Okay. There are a lot of configurations, package installations, several other configurations for your Angular app to run. We are not worried about anything here except the source directory, SRC. This is where we'll write our project. We'll do our design. We'll build our HTML building blocks. We'll write our Angular logic, JavaScript logic, TypeScript, everything inside this SRC directory. Okay. In order to run this project, all I need to do is use the ng command. Ng command will call the Angular CLI, and then all I need to do is serve it. And I need to head over to the chat UI first. Navigate to the Angular project first, and then run ng serve. So basically what happens is you can see that it's actually building and creating JS files. But all you see here is a TS file. Angular is a TypeScript framework. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, right? So we'll look in deep dive into TypeScript in the actual course. Now it is converting into JS files, and it created a simple web server for us to see the project. Now head over to the browser and type localhost colon 4200. This is the port it's running on. Now we can see that there is a simple boilerplate code of Angular, right? We are going to remove this and we are going to create our own chat design, right? Right. So what happens is there's an index.html file. Under that, we have all the necessary HTML elements. But right under that, you see something called app root. This is the entry point to our Angular application, right? This app root is a tag that corresponds to this app.component.ts file. Now again, in Angular, every page that you see is a component. Okay. Every component has its own HTML where you go write your HTML tags, build the layout. It's like on a blank or on a plain land, you're using bricks to construct your house. So bricks will give you the shape of the house. It will give the layout of the house. You know how many rooms to fit in, where to set the living room, where to set the restroom, where to set the kitchen. So that kind of thing you do with HTML, right? And then we have the CSS file. This is where you'll add beauty to the application. So basically, you built your house. Now you want to paint it to make it, appear beautiful. You do that with your CSS. You can apply colors, you can set fonts, font sizes, you set animations, everything happens through CSS. And then we have this .ts file. This is where the logic goes. For example, you built your house, you painted your house, looks very beautiful, but you do not have electricity. There are switches, but you switch on something, no appliances work. How does it work? How does it feel? Really bad, right? So you give life to your house. That is where the TS file comes in. This is where you will write logic for interactivity. A user clicks on a button, a pop-up appears. How? Using your JavaScript. All of this logic will go inside your TS, right? Forget about config and routes. We'll talk about that later. For now, we'll only focus on HTML, the CSS, and the TypeScript file, right? Let me go clear everything from the HTML, app component HTML. This is the app root actually. If I save it, you'll see that the page is now very much empty. If I start writing something, let's call it H1, chat application, and I save it, immediately the browser will refresh and show whatever we have written in the body. Okay, perfect, cool. Let's design an introduction page now. For designing, if I start writing custom CSS here, for example, if you see for the h1 tag that I just created, I want to apply the color as red and save. It changes. Likewise, I can set the font size as well. Let's say font size I want 32 pixels. Save it. Let's make it 100 pixels. You see, the font size changes. Now, if I write custom CSS here, it's going to take a lot of time, and I personally don't like that. So this is where Tailwind comes to the rescue. Tailwind is an amazing CSS framework, just like Bootstrap. Tailwind CSS. There we go. Right. So this is called as a utility first framework, meaning that you don't have to write a single line of CSS. Everything works using classes like this. These are pre-built inside Tailwind. So we'll be using Tailwind to quickly design our introduction page. Okay. So let's see how to install this for Angular. Somebody is making noise. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So what we'll do here is we'll head over to the documentation. Under the installation submenu, go to framework guides here. Under framework guides, pick Angular framework here. Okay. Click on that. You'll have this instruction here. Here we've already created the project. All we need to do is using npm, we will install the necessary dependencies for Tailwind to work. Copy it, go to your terminal, stop the application using Control C. If you press Control C on your keyboard, the application will stop running. And paste it here. There we go. Now Tailwind is installed. We need to do some kind of configuration also. Copy this. They're asking to create a file named postcssrc.json. So in your root directory, the chat UI, click on chat UI, right click on chat UI, create a new file, call it post cssrc.json and paste it here. The next step is to import the Tailwind package inside our global CSS. If you see inside the src directory, we have something called styles.scss. Double click on it and paste your Tailwind here and save it. If you see, that's it, the installation is over. They're asking us to serve the application and use Tailwind classes. Now let's test it out. I'll remove the CSS that has been applied here. So the application. Perfect. Now if I refresh, the styling is gone. Instead of writing CSS here, I am going to apply the utility classes from Tailwind. Okay. We'll call it text red 500 and save. Perfect. Now the font colors are changing. I don't have to write a single line of code. Rather, it is built in inside Tailwind. You can also see how it is built. Right click on this text here, click on inspect. The developer tools will open. Then you can see that the element you inspected has been highlighted here. And on the styles pane here on the right hand side, you can see that for text hyphen red, there is a color already assigned that is coming from Tailwind. You cannot change it inside the Tailwind framework. Okay, this is predefined inside Tailwind itself. Likewise, there are several other classes that are predefined inside Tailwind. This is how it works. Okay. Now my idea is to create a box in the center of the screen. Okay. For that, we need to do some prerequisites. For all the elements inside HTML, I'm going to use box sizing. There we go. Border box. Okay. I'll not go into explanations. That's going to take some time to explain. So I want to save this time. Okay. 0. with 100%. And if you see that, the IDE intelligently knows what I'm trying to do, right? Because there is an AI tool built inside it. If you have Copilot subscription, Microsoft Copilot or GitHub Copilot, you can integrate that inside VS Code itself. As you keep typing based on your previous codes, it will suggest what you want to do. Just press tab, it will auto complete it. Okay. Perfect. Now I want to have two screens. So the home screen will be the introduction page where you will get the user's email address, and there will be a second page /chat. This is where the actual chat window will appear. So there are two URLs in my application. I need to set them. I'm going to stop this application again, and using the Angular's command, I'm going to generate a new component. I'll call that as intro. Okay. When I do this, you can see that under app directory, there is a new directory called intro. Okay. If I expand this, it will again have its own HTML, CSS, and TS files. This pic file is used for testing purposes. We will not disturb it. We will not open it as well because it has nothing to do with our application logic. I'll close it. We are only concerned about HTML, CSS, and the TS files. Okay. So we have created a new component. Now we also need to create another component called chat. ng generate, G is a shortcut, component is C is a shortcut for component, and then the component name. Another component is now created. It is chat. It also has the same set of files, right? Fine. Now we have two pages created, but how do we set the URLs into it? Open this app.routes.ts file, and inside this array symbol here, we are going to create an object. So the path is going to be empty path. When the URL does not have anything, it's simply like this. It should open the intro page. So for no path, I will use the intro component. When I use this intro component, it is highlighted in red. Why? Because it is unable to find the file. Now I need to import this intro component. At the top, I'll write intro. It's giving a suggestion. I'm going to click on it. It autofills. So it is using this intro component class from this path. Now let's see what is there inside this intro component. Hold control and click on this class name. That will take you to the intro component TS file, as you can see here. And here we have a JavaScript class written. The class name is intro component. So we are using this intro component. This intro component class file in turn will load two other files. You can see it is loading its corresponding HTML and the CSS file, right? Perfect. So now this becomes one full package. That is what we're importing here. Likewise, we're going to import chat as well. The path will be /chat, and the component will be the chat component. Okay. In VS Code, you don't have to go type it here. Okay. Instead, just put the mouse on it. It will give a suggestion to insert. Just click on it. It will insert the chat component. That's it. Okay. So the path is set. Let's go test it. If I hit enter now, okay, I need to serve my application. If I hit enter now, I still see chat application only, but I'm supposed to see the HTML of intro saying intro works, but it is not working. Why? Because in the app, I've hard coded something. Instead, I should make this dynamic. I'll use something called a router outlet. So router outlet will listen for any URL change and load its appropriate component based on the path we have set here, right? Save it. After saving, the application will rebuild here. Head over and see, now it says intro works. If I head over to /chat, it states chat works, which means our routing is working perfectly fine. Likewise, you can create any number of components and set any number of URLs in your app.routes.ts file. All right, now head over to your intro page. This is where we're going to design the intro. We close everything else other than intro HTML file, right? Now the idea is I want a box at the center of the screen. So first I'll say that I'll set a overall background first. Okay, so I'll say use and I'm going to use the full width of the page, full height of the page, and I'm going to set something dark, call it slate or gray, something like that, and save it. If I come to the UI, now you can see I have a dark screen. Okay, perfect. Now I also say that in my dark screen, I want white text. I also say that the text color should be white. All right, fine. Now head over to my intro component. Let's test it. Under a paragraph, I say hello. There we go. We have hello in white text. Okay. I personally like prefer dark theme. Okay. So I use these colors. Let's create a box that is aligned in the center of the screen. I'm going to create something called a flex box. Okay. With a specific width. For example, let's say I need a width of say 300 pixels and the height can be auto. As the as I keep writing HTML tags, the height will auto grow. Okay. Say logo here. Now it is not in the center. If I add a background color and check, there we go. It has a width and a height. If I say height is, let's say 200 pixel, I'll have a 200 pixels white box. Now, how do I bring it exactly in the center of the screen? I need to wrap this inside another box, or I could also say margin auto. There we go, center. Now I need this to sit vertically in the center. I'm going to wrap this inside another box, and it's going to be a flex box. Flex is a separate concept inside CSS itself. Okay. If I do this, there we go. It's now exactly in the center of the screen. All right. Perfect. Let me remove this BG white and add a border with a gray color. Let's call it gray 500. There we go. Perfect. Now I want all the items to be aligned to the center in the box. So for the flex, I'd say items center and also horizontally center. For that, justify center. There we go. Perfect. Now let's add a logo here for the chat app. So there are many websites from where you can download pictures. Chat. We'll use this. Download a PNG. Okay, image downloaded. Copy it. And inside the public folder, I'll create a directory called images. Right in the images, I'm going to paste my file. I have this chat.png. Instead of saying logo here, I'd use the image HTML tag with an src. Okay. So right under images directory, I have chat.png. There we go. We have our logo appearing here, but that's very big, right? So using Tailwind class, I'll reduce the size. I'll say width of about say 48 rem and height 48 rem. Still big. Call it too small. Keep it 24. Good enough. Okay. Fine. I don't want it to be vertically centered. I'll keep it at the top. And I'll create a text box right below it. We'll ask the user to enter their email address. Now you can see it is sitting beside your logo, but we want it to be vertically aligned. So we'll make this flex box, which is its parent, a flex column. In a flex column, items are arranged vertically. By default, it is flex row if I remove this. In a flex row, items are arranged horizontally. We don't want that. So I'm going to use flex column. If I save now, you see items are arranged vertically. Okay, fine. Okay. In a flex column, the main axis changes. So I need to change this to item center. Perfect. We also need a gap between them. Instead of setting margins or patterns for each element, column gives an option to set a gap. Y is for the vertical y axis. Okay, vertically I need to have a little bit gap. I can add more, make it 6. I have a good gap. In order to make this email appear like an input box, I'm going to add a border to it. Doing tailwind class, add a border, light border, something like 300. Good enough. But when I click on it, it looks ugly. It has a blue outline to it. I want to remove the outline, so I'd call it outline none. And I also want a rounded border, rounded large. Looks a little bit pretty. Outline is gone. We also need to add padding because as a type, it's sticking to the borders. I'll add a padding of 2. This is a little bit good. Perfect. Right. And right below that, I want to add a button. Right. I'll remove border from here. Add a text here. Perfect. And after adding email, we will also ask the user to enter a button. Now click on the button and we'll call this enter chat. Good. Doesn't look like a button. Okay. If you want Tailwind styling, right, just head over to Tailwind CSS. You'll have documentation here. Right. See, you have a lot of documentation with examples. Likewise, on the internet, there are a lot of libraries and snippets. For example, if you don't know how to design, if you're not able to creatively think, just head over to a lot of websites here that offers free buttons. There we go. We'll pick this green color. Let this be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth button, right? There we go. We just copy it and paste it here. Head back, your button is ready. You just need to change the text inside it. We call this enter chat. Perfect, perfect, superb. Now I'm going to write fullstack@gmail.com. Now we have, built a nice house. We have applied paint to it, but there's no electricity. See, when I click on enter chat, nothing is happening. You see, the application is completely dead, although it looks very nice here. So how do we, enable interaction between the user's input device and the application? So that is where your JavaScript and TypeScript comes in. Now you see what I'm going to do. On this button right, I'm going to look for a click event. These events are wrapped inside a curly brace. I say is equal to, in double quotes, I'm going to write a function. The function's name is enter chat. This is basic JavaScript, nothing complex here. Okay. Now enter chat turns red. It says that if I put my mouse on it, it says that unresolved function or method enter chat. It is unable to find this function. User defined a function. I'm going to create this. Okay. For that, I need to head over to my intro.component.ts file and create the function called enter chat. Okay. Let's see if this works. I'm going to log user click button. Okay. If I head over to HTML file, now this turns blue, meaning that it is able to identify the method. If you control and click on this enter chat, it will directly take you to the function in your TS file, okay, for easy navigation. Now let's see if this works in the browser. Right click on the page, open the developer tool using this inspect option, and you'll find an option called console here. You see the second tab here is console. Go there. Now, if you click on this enter chat button, there you go. You see a log, which means our button from the HTML page is able to communicate with the method in your TS file. Perfect. This is what we are looking for. Now we'll write a logic here. I want to, so basically what happens is when the user enters their email here in the input box and then click on enter chat, we need to capture this email address, whatever the user type, and send it to the server for the server to know who the user is, right? So we first need to capture. There are several ways you can do it. You can use pure JavaScript using document.getElementById, but we will be using the Angular way. For that, in Angular, all you need to do is create an ng model like this. This will be completely new to you, but do not worry. As you keep practicing, you'll become much familiar about this kind of directives. This is called a directive in Angular. This model will have a name to it. We'll call it user email. So essentially what we're doing is behind the screens, JavaScript is creating a variable called username and binding it to this input element so that we can access this element's value very much easily, right? Now this throws an error. Can't bind ng model because we need to import it. Okay, it says that ng model is from the forms module. I head over to my intro component and in the imports, I say forms module and I double click on this from the suggestion, it will import the forms module. Now, if I head over to the HTML, the error is gone. Okay. Essentially what happens is this forms module has this ng model attribute inside it. That is why. Now we also need to define this user email because it is in red, unable to find. Head over to intro, right under your class in the first line, type user email. You should also set a type to it. In the email, are you going to write numbers? No, it is going to be a string. So put a colon and say that this variable can only hold strings. It cannot take objects, nor numbers, nor arrays. And initialize that to an empty value. By default, it should be empty. You see, now that is gone. If I head over to the browser after saving, it's empty. You can also set a default value just by just assigning a value to it. For example, let's say fullstack@gmail.com. Save it. If you come to the browser, you can see that the default value is assigned. So that is how ng model works. Ng model is used to identify elements on the HTML page. It's just like, you put on a switch, it's connected to the fan. Okay, exactly like that. So this ng model is a switch here, right? That will connect this input element with this variable. So basically, you can consider ng model as a switch in your house. Perfect. Now we'll keep this to empty itself. And how do, when on a click of a button, how do we access this? You just write console.log this.user email. In JavaScript, this is a keyword that will refer to the current class, its parent class. Inside this class, everything is an object, right? So here, user email is an object, enter chat is an object, everything is an object. To access objects in JavaScript, we use dot operator. So this refers to your class, and inside that you are accessing user email object. Now let's try it again. Say fullstack@gmail.com. Now if I click enter, you are able to see that whatever whatever email address user has entered. Fine, perfect. Now our front end is ready. Now we need to store this somewhere inside our browser and navigate to the chat screen. Let's do that. So there's something called local storage. Okay, local storage. Local storage is a browser storage. So essentially Chrome, Opera, Mozilla Firefox, all of them have local storage. every website can store about 5 MB of text data inside the browser itself for each domain. That is available here. If you head over to your developer tools, there'll be a lot of tabs. There, go to the application tab, and this application tab here will have a sub navigation. There you will see your domain name. Our domain is currently localhost 4200. Click on that. You can see that there is already an email. Let me remove it. If I refresh the page again, you can see that there is no key here, right? So in order to set the storage, use local storage keyword in JavaScript dot set item. Set item takes two parameters. The first parameter is the key. We'll call that as email. Second parameter is whatever value you want to store. In our case, just dot user email. You save it again, refresh the page here, enter the email again, fullstack@gmail.com. The moment you enter chat, it will appear here in the local storage. You see, I'm going to click. There we go. Now we are storing our email address in the local storage. Why? Because we'll be using this later in a chat screen for that purpose. And we also send this to the server for further processing. Perfect. Now this is over. The second step is to store email locally. In JavaScript or TypeScript, // means you're writing a comment. This will not be executed by your JavaScript or TypeScript compiler. This line will be ignored. This is for informative purposes for the developers. Tomorrow, if I leave the job, somebody else is replacing me, they should understand why this line of code was written. Only for that purpose. The second step is to navigate to the chat screen. Okay. Perfect. In Angular, for navigation, we have something called routers. Okay, we're going to import router first. There we go. We have the suggestion. A router is a class that will have necessary submethods to implement navigation inside Angular application. You can navigate with data, without data. We can set the navigation redirection to different pages. A lot of other stuff can be done. But I simply cannot use this router inside my class directly. For that, I need to instantiate the class. I put my mouse over it. You can see that a router itself is a class here. You cannot use a class directly like objects, enter chat and user email. Rather, you have to initialize the class and then use the instance of the class. Okay. So I'm going to add a constructor. Constructor is a method in JavaScript which will be executed immediately when the class runs. Okay. At that point in time, I'm going to create a router variable and instantiate my router class on top of it. Now router becomes an object inside the class, which I can use to navigate pages. Now I'll call this dot router dot router has a method called navigate. This method takes a parameter which is the URL of our inside array /chat page. This is what we set in the app routes. Remember, if you head over to app routes, you can see the path is chat. We're routing to chat page now. Let's try again. I'll remove the email from here, refresh the page. fullstack@gmail.com. Hit enter. Two things will happen. First, we set the local storage. Second, we navigate. Perfect. We set the storage and then the page navigated to chat page. One problem is solved. The second problem is to design our chat page. Okay. Let's close others. Open chat component. Let's start building our layout. We essentially need the same layout, right? So I'll copy this parent only from our intro page and paste it here. Perfect. Now I have something in mind. Okay, so I want to design the page like this. So basically we'll have a box like this. Right under that box, I want to have a left navigation or a left pane where I'll have a list of users. Okay, something like this. We'll see all the online users here in a list. That will be a scrollable box. And on the right hand side, I'll have the chat body where users chat will be listed. At the bottom, I want to have an input box where you can, your Sage here, align it, perfect. And here, I'll have the user chat bubbles. Whenever user sends a chat message, it will be like this. So here we'll have the user's email address, the message, and the time at which the user sent the message. So we'll be using this layout to design our screen. Okay. So first, let's set a fixed width and height for the chat page. I'm going to create a flex box. As you can see, this flex box should align elements horizontally. You can see that the first is the user list, the second is the chat body, right? So items are aligned horizontally. I should be using the flex row. By default, it is flex row. And we can have a gap of 2 rem. Perfect. Okay. Now the first box, user list. We also have another box. We'll call that chat body. Okay. So the user list, again, you can see that elements inside user list are vertically aligned. So I should be using a flex call. Okay. And here as well, items inside the chat body is also vertically aligned. That also is a flex column. I'll copy this. If I just save this and head over to my chat page, I see nothing at all because we have no content. Let's add some dummy content. Let's see, user list, chat body, save it. Now you can see that it is flex column and evenly assigned. It's exactly in the center. The left half is for user list and the right half is for the chat body. So the parent must have, that's also assigned BGY to see the size of it. You see, this is the entire size of it. Now we need to set a fixed width and height. Let's do that. So let's say I'll use a width of about 700 pixels, the height about 300 pixel. Instead of this, we'll give a border as well. 400. And there we go. We have a fixed width here, right? So increase the height also. Let's call it 350. Width about 780. Okay. Now the challenge here is that the left should be a fixed width and the remaining width should be taken by the chat body, which means it should auto grow to the maximum available space, right? I'm going to first define the user list here. So user list again is a flex column right here. Yeah. I need to set width to it. So sorry about that. So the width is going to be out of 780. I'm going to take 300 pixels wide. Height will auto grow inside a flex. That won't be an issue. Similarly, this flex box should auto grow. I'll be using the grow class. So remaining space is occupied by the chat body. Save it. We'll also give a background. Call it slate 700. There we go. We have it. Perfect. But user list is very long. I'll reduce it to 260 pixels. Perfect. Now I need to make the design look a little bit sleek. Okay. So I want rounded edges everywhere. Parent must have a rounded edge, rounded large. Similarly, these two as well. Rounded LG. Perfect. Good. Now we need to add spacing here. Rounded LG. Okay, let's add padding to it because it's sticking to the border. It's supposed to be into here also. Great. Awesome. Now we have this. Or we could remove the border itself here. You can use a maximum space. There we go. We have user list and chat body. Perfect now. Now let's quickly design the user list. User list should be something like this. Okay, we'll have a user icon here, and then email. There should be an email, and it should also have show the last message sent. Okay, so it should be something like this. So essentially, what happens is this becomes a flex box. Inside the flex box, items are arranged horizontally. The left portion and the right portion. Okay. Left portion will stay as is. Right portion will again become a column because email and the last message are arranged vertically, right? So that's what I'm going to do. So inside my user list here, I'd do a flex. I'll call this as user wrapper. And the design will be like this. It's a flex box, the gap 2. Right inside that, we should have let's call it a div. This should be rounded and have the initial of the email address. Let's make it a rounded full. It should also have a padding about 2. It should have a BG white. Looks ugly. Let's set a specific width. Instead of padding, let's say W10, height 10. Perfect. And it should be BG slate 900. Perfect. We got the circle. Now we need to align it to the center of the screen. So in a flex, let's make this as a flex. Just do items center and justify center. That should do the trick. There we go. We have it in the center of the screen. Now we should be concerned about the right hand side portion. So flex, right? This is the left hand side portion, right? Okay. Now the right handed portion should be a flex column, right? To arrange vertically, the gap 2. The first one will give the email fullstack@gmail.com and span the last message sent by the user. Okay, I cannot use at. Instead of that, I'll use Unicode. Perfect. But the gap is too much. I'll remove the gap. The text is very big. I want to make the text small. Text SM will make the text small. There we go. Now let's add a border to it and add a padding to it. Border, say border slate 900. It has a border. Let's make it rounded and add spacing inside it. So add a padding and make it rounded full. So rounded large. There we go. And if you put your mouse on it, it should change the background color. So when you hover your mouse on it, you do BG slate 700. It's already 700, right? So we'll make it 500. So when you put your mouse on it, it has this hover effect on top of it. Fine, this is good. Now let's copy paste for multiple users and see how the UI behaves. There we go. Now you see it is breaking the UI. Let me add more users. See, the UI is broken now. It's going out of the box. So how do we fix this? You go to the parent of this wrapper and say that it should accept an overflow of y-axis and auto, which will create scroll bar vertically. Fresh, and there we go. Now we have the scroll bar. Beautiful. Let's add gap in between them. How do you do that? For flex, you can add a gap one. There we go. Perfect. So as when user keeps adding to the system, or we'll add the user list to this section. Perfect. This is good. Let's remove all other wrappers. Perfect. Save it. We have one wrapper. Now let's focus on the right hand side. We need an input box at the bottom. Before that, let me just quickly check the chat. Okay, chat's empty. Guys, please just confirm. Am I still audible? Okay, all right. Thank you. Now let's focus on the lower part. Okay. So the idea is that the top part should take the maximum space. Okay. So top part here will take the maximum space and add another one here. Okay. Fine. Okay. The top part must take the maximum space and leave the fixed space for the input box here. So my design will be like this. The first one will grow, right? And it's a flex column to arrange the chat bubbles vertically. And at the bottom, we will have an input box with a specified height and width. So width is full. The height would be, let's say 10. Okay, we have an input box. We'll apply the same class. We'll remove the outline. We'll make it a rounded LG. We'll add a 2 padding. Then a placeholder also. Your message. Let's add a border. Okay, there we go. Fine. And at the top, we have our chat bubble. We'll design the chat bubble now. Add a border. There we go. Let's add a gap as well because it is sticking to the bottom. Now we'll make the edges rounded here. Oh, rounded LG. Fine. And inside that, let's create a chat bubble. One chat bubble. That is user message. So I want it to be a flex box. Okay. It'll be a flex column, vertically arranged message. The first will be a flex row. Okay. And justify. Okay. The email address of the user. And on the right hand side, you show the time. The time would be something like 10:30 a.m. And below that, we show the message of the user. Perfect. I want the time to be moving to the right hand side instead. Let's also make the text small. I want the time to move to the right and email address stay on the left. For that, all I need to do is justify between. This will add space in between two elements. See, 10:30 has gone to the right, but I only want to take half of the screen, not the entire width. So here I'd say W1/2, exactly half the parent width till here. Perfect. Now let's add a border to them. 900. Good. We'll make it rounded and add spacing inside and outside as well because I don't want it to stick to the border here. So to add outer spacing, I'll add margin, add inner spacing padding, and we'll make it a rounded LG as well. Good.
Ashik, we can't hear you. Uh, Hello. We can't hear you,
Somebody
Ashik.
muted me. Yeah, okay, okay. All right. So how long was it?
It's like 2 minutes, I guess.
Oh goodness. Elias, does somebody have access? I got muted.
I don't know. Let me check. I'll keep checking.
Oh, fine. Okay. I'm sorry about that, guys. But you were able to follow, right? The design? Okay, right.
Others, please let him know.
Fine. Okay. I'll continue from here. Good. So I'm enabling an switch here. So basically setting up ng model, and I'm also writing the user message here, right? It's connecting to the user message variable here, but it's just allowing me to type, right? I can also show what I'm typing here. For example, instead of user message here, you can see inside this double curly braces, I can display my variable as well, user message. If I save it, and I start typing here, it shows what's stored inside the variable. Okay, but how do I implement this enter key here, right? So for that we have something called event binding. So what I want is whenever a key is pressed and released, okay, that's called the key up event. Whenever a key up event happens in that input box, which means that user presses the button and releases the button, at that point in time this key up is triggered. I want to run a function at that time. I'll call it send message. Okay, there are several events like key up, key down, key press, click, double click, a lot of other things, drag, drop, a lot of other key events can also be assigned here. Now send message is undefined, which means I have to write my method. I'll write the method here, send message. The send message should log whatever the user has typed. So I just say this dot user message. Open the developer tools, head over to console and test it out. Message. See, as the user types, I'm getting this key, right? As the user types, it's giving me whatever is stored here. But I still have a problem. Like, how do I know user has pressed the enter key? Like, for that, what you have to do is head over to your send message. There's something called a dollar event, which means Angular will send the entire key event. If you're pressing A on the keyboard, this entire A's information is sent to your send message. On the other side, we need to capture this event. We'll call this simply a E variable and we'll say it is of any type. In TypeScript, if you do not pass a type when receiving, it will throw an error. Parameter A implicitly has any type. We're not allowing this. So we say that it can be of any type. Okay. And instead of a message directly, let's log this A and see what happens. Sorry. Okay. I'm saving it, running it again, refresh. I'm going to press A. Now you see something weird and new, right? It says it's a keyboard event. If I expand this, it has a lot of objects inside it. But we are only concerned about this key code. What is the ASCII value of small a? 65. It's giving us the ASCII value, right? And in the code, you can see that on the keyboard, the button A is pressed. Now I'm going to hit enter. Let me clear this. I'm going to hit enter here. If I expand this, you can see that the code is enter and the key code is number 13. The ASCII value of enter key is 13, right? Perfect. Now we are concerned about this key code only. Now I say that if E dot key code is exactly equal to 13, only in that case, you log the user's message out. Now I'm going to write this. Hello, how are you doing today? I'm going to hit enter and there we go. We have a message ready. The next thing is to send this message to the server so that all other connected users are able to see your message. This is where we'll use our backend logic. So front end, we have done it. Okay. Now let me just minimize this front end application. Inside my chat app again, I'm going to create a new directory. I'll call that as chat backend. Okay. And then navigate to the chat backend directory. I'm going to create a new Node.js project. In order to start a new Node.js project, the command is npm init -y. If you do this, in your chat backend, it will create a file called package.json file. This will have the information about your project. Okay. Now we need to add packages here because in order to spin up a new server, right, we need to install Express framework. For real-time messaging, we want socket.io. And to enable security, we need CORS, cross-origin resource sharing. This three package will suffice. I'm going to hit enter. You'll see that there will be a new object called dependencies added here. And a node modules directory is created. It will install all the necessary packages and third-party libraries in order to run these three packages our application is dependent upon. Okay, perfect. All of the latest version are downloaded now. You should not delete this node modules, otherwise it won't work. If you delete the node modules by mistake, let's say, for example, I deleted this, it's gone. If you try to run the application, it will throw an error. You need to do an npm install. What npm install will do here is it will go through your package JSON's dependencies object and install everything that is mentioned here. Okay, let me install it. We have our node modules again. It will download the packages again from npm repository. Fine, perfect. Now we need an entry point to the application. We'll create a new JavaScript file and we'll call that as app. App.js is created. Now we need to spin up an express along with the socket inside it. So we'll be using a package called socket.io. Getting started. Just a lot of things, right? Syntax. Integrating socket.io. Perfect. So this is a sample code. Okay. We'll be using common JS here. Just copy this entire code by clicking this icon. Come here and paste it. Okay. Now let's save and run this to make sure it works. So get is basically the root URL of your application. Let me change this. res.send. Welcome to chat application. Save it. As you can see that the port number is 3000. Okay, it's running on port 3000. Our UI is running on 4200. The backend will run on port number 3000 on your machine. To run a Node.js application, you just write node space the file name here. You hit enter. There we go. Your application is running on localhost 3000. You open a new tab and navigate to localhost 3000. Hit enter. You are able to see your backend application up and running here. Perfect. But we are not going to render any page or write APIs here. Rather, we are going to use socket.io to implement real-time messaging. As you can see in the sample, you have something called io.on connection. Okay. This IO variable is actually creating a new web server. If this server, we look at the server variable, it's creating a new app again. And then new app is an Express framework. So basically, what happens is you are creating a Node.js application using Express web server socket implemented inside it. Okay, that's the entire idea here. Perfect. Now you can see that IO connection here, which means that whenever a new connection is established with the backend from the browser, it should log a user has been connected. Right? Now we know that the backend is up and running fine. We need to integrate front-end socket. The client has to connect to the backend server. For that, Angular socket implementation. There's a package called ngx socket.io, which is a third-party library. Okay, let's first install it. Now here, head over to the Angular tab, stop the application, paste the code and hit enter. Okay, this has installed ngx socket.io package. Next, what we need to do, okay, they have given a sample code as well on how to do it. Okay, let me just copy this. And in the UI, I need to have a separate service for chat because we'll have a lot of features, right? In future, we'll be developing file uploads, video uploads, we'll have voice calls, video calls, right? So I don't want to implement everything inside the chat component because it becomes very heavy. Rather, I would create a separate service file, okay, that can be used anywhere, reused anywhere inside the application. That's the whole idea. Perfect. Now, just like components, I'm going to create a new service file and I'll call the service file as chat. The moment I hit enter, you can see that a chat service in spec is created for me. I'll open this. I'll just replace this and module, right? Okay, I don't need to use all this. I'm only concerned about this important connection. Just copy the first two lines and paste it here, right? We're going to remove this unused socket.io module file. And we know that the backend is running on port number 3000. So the browser needs to connect to 3000 instead. And are we missing anything? Just one bracket outside. Okay. Fine. Okay. That's done. And in order to instantiate this config, right, there should be, they've used a different method. Okay. In our Angular application, we need to do something different. We'll call this super method here, config. But in order to use this config, our Angular application must know that this config belongs to socket.io. So we need to extend the class here. Extends socket. Socket is imported from socket.io. Now Angular knows that, okay, this config variable belongs to the socket class, which is its parent class. Basically, we are doing inheritance here. And inheriting, you're passing this basic variable inside your parent class. Okay, that's all. So our chat service is ready. Now we need to use this chat service inside our chat component. So whenever the chat component loads, you need to connect to the backend service. I'll write a constructor. I'll use this chat service here, import it here. Okay. Chat service is imported, which we just created here. That is imported here. After importing, we have access to this entire chat service, right? So there is also something called as lifecycle hook. Okay. In a lifecycle hook, what happens is when a page is opened, it is initialized, and when a page is closed, it is destroyed. Just like human beings have a life cycle, right? Human being is born, he lives, he dies. Similarly, a page is initiated. There are several other things, and a page is also destroyed finally. So when a page is loaded for the first time, the chat component is loaded for the first time, I need to connect to the chat service. So there's something called on init lifecycle hook. I need to import it from Angular's core, and I need to inherit that. So implements, there we go. We have on init. This throws an error now. It says that property ng on init is missing. We need to create that ng on init. There we go. Double click on it. It is created for you. The error is gone. Here I'm going to use my chat service. Dot. There's a method inside our socket that is called as connect, and I'll save it. Okay, perfect. Now let me serve the application. Reload. There we go. I'm gonna write my email, stack@gmail.com, and then connect. Oh, it's able to connect here, but it is blocked by CORS. Okay, CORS policy. By default, Node.js application is blocking a request because it's thinking that someone else or a stranger or a hacker is trying to connect and extract data. So we need to tell our chat service in the backend, our backend application, that use CORS. So here, right under this, I'll say app.use CORS. I need to first const CORS is equal to require CORS. We installed the CORS package, right? We are storing that inside CORS, and now I'm asking app to use CORS here. Okay, let's try. When you make any change in the backend, you need to restart it. Okay, I need to stop and restart. Instead, I'd use something called nodemon. Okay, nodemon is a package you need to install separately that will listen for changes and automatically restart the server for us. Right. Okay, let me refresh and try again. Okay, even after enabling CORS, it's throwing error. I shared something. Client configuration issue. Options. What options do we have? I think we need to enable transport on this. Okay, transports. There we go. We have WebSocket. Okay. Save and try again. There we go. Now we don't have error. In the backend, we should also be able to see a log. There we go. User connected. Okay, if I refresh again, I'll see another user connected. Every time I connect, a new connection is established for me. In the backend, okay, in the backend, we have nothing to do with the chat service anymore. I'll close it. In the backend, I can also show the socket's ID, a unique socket ID, assigned to every user coming in. There we go. As soon as the server restarted, the browser is trying to connect, a fresh socket ID is assigned to the user. Okay, perfect. Now All right. Now we also need to handle a disconnect, right? So basically, I say socket.on disconnect event. When I refresh my page, when I close my browser, I need to know who the user is. I say console user disconnected along with the user socket ID, socket.id. Now you see that a user connected, right, with ID 8 starting with 8Q. Let me just close the tab. Now it shows that a user disconnected with the same ID that I connected. So we are able to identify who the user is when it's disconnected, so that from the online users we can remove that particular user. Perfect. We open it again. User is connected. Fine. Now whenever a user joins, right, we also need to know who the user is, which means we need to store the user's email address. Perfect. Okay. So here, as soon as I connect here in the chat component, in the ng on it, I'm connecting. Along with that, I'm going to emit an event here. Okay, I'll use this chat service emit. So basically, this is publish and subscribe concept. If anyone has worked on a pub sub concept before, you should know. For whoever are new to this, just know that there is a publisher and there is a subscriber, just like radio. Somebody is emitting signals on 98.3 FM. They're talking, but a lot of people can tune into 98.3 FM and listen to what one person is saying. So basically, 98.3 FM is emitting audio signals and you people are subscribing to it, right? That is pub sub concepts. So I'm emitting with an event name. You can say 98.3 FM, something like that. Okay. Likewise, I have a unique key. We'll call that as new user added. Okay. Or new user connected. Along with it, I'm going to pass data. What is my data? I'll write an object. Key is email and the value is this dot value. Where is our email stored? In the local storage, right? Dot, there we go. Get item of email. I'm getting the email address from local storage and binding it with the email object and sending this as a data. And on the server, I need to listen on the same thing. So I'll write another socket listener, socket.io on new user connected. I'm fetching data. Let's log the data and see what it's coming from there. Okay. Socket.io is not a function. I'm sorry, it is on keyword. There we go. Perfect. A user is connected here, right? Let me refresh again. There we go. After a user is connected, we are emitting a new user connected event along with the email address from the browser. Now the backend has received the email address. Perfect, right? Now the backend must know who must maintain a list of users to know who is online and who is not. What I will do is I'll use a map here. Let's use a const keyword. Const. We'll call this user list. That's a new map for us. Okay. Map is a type of JavaScript object which is used for fast searching. If there are a long list of items in your object, you can use a map to index and search very fast. Okay, for that we use map. So here we know that inside data we have this email object. What I'm going to do is say this user list dot set key and value pairs again. The key is going to be data dot email. Should we do it? No, the key is going to be our socket ID, which is a unique socket ID, right? And in that socket ID, I'm going to store the email. Okay, perfect. There we go. Now we can also log the user list whenever a user is connected. User list. I'll save. I'm going to refresh back here and see whenever the user is connected, we also store that inside a map and display what the map is storing. So the socket ID is starts with 66 and the value is the email address. Now let's add another user. I'll open an incognito window. I'll open 4200 again. And this time I'll call angular@gmail.com and hit enter. It goes to the chat screen. And on the log, you can see that now we have two users. We have both full stack and the angular@gmail.com users. Perfect. So we are able to manage the user list. But what happens when the user disconnects? We need to remove the user from socket, right? So we already have the socket ID, which is the key in our map. All I need to do is user list dot, there we go, delete socket ID. A socket is deleted. We can then again do a console log here of user list whenever a user leaves. Okay, let me clear this. Now head over to this one, and I am going to leave from the right hand side type, which is angular@gmail.com. I left. You should be able to see the log. A user has disconnected. Let's try again. Refresh. User connected. We'll add another user. Localhost 4200. Angular@gmail.com. Enter. Now we should be having two users. Okay, now angular@gmail.com is going to leave. Left. There we go. We are left with only fullstack@gmail.com. Now we are perfectly able to manage users. Now, the moment I go inside, for example, let's say I'm logging in as fullstack@gmail.com. The moment I go inside, I must know who the know the list of existing users, so I can update it on my side here. Correct. Okay. Now we are going to do that. In the chat component, where we have hard coded this one, we need to dynamically add it. So in my chat component, I'm going to maintain a separate variable called user list. Okay. It's of type any array. User list can store anything, but it should be an array only. Okay, that's the idea here. And here I'm going to use a loop here. Okay, in Angular we have the syntax, let user of user list, okay, track by user. This is an Angular syntax, don't worry about it now. Okay, fine. And here user will have, let's forget about last matches, let's keep it static only. We will use user dot email here to show the email address of the user dot email. Okay, this user list must support email address also. Fine. Okay, fine. Now how do we update this user list? The moment I go inside, a new user is connected, right? Whenever a new user is connected, server must tell everyone that there is a new user inside the server. So this new user connected should publish an event now. It is going to broadcast message. For that I do io.emit. Socket means it's only relating to one user. When I say IO, it relates to all users. I am going to emit something called updated user list. Okay. And what is the updated user list? Our user list variable. Every time we add a new user to the user. Perfect. And on the chat side, I need to listen to this, right? So when the page loads, I start listening. This dot chat service dot on updated, what's the event name? Updated user list. The user gets an updated user list and he gets the data. We'll log the data and see what comes from the server. Okay, we inspect, we refresh. Okay, there are new users now. Okay. Okay, it's because that we are sending map here. Okay, map are directly not thing. We need to convert this to an array. Okay, array dot from user list dot values. Let's try again. Refresh, and there we go. we get the user list from the backend now. There's only full stack. Now let's add a new user and see if the UI is up. I mean, we're getting a log here in the background. And we'll call this as angular@gmail.com. Enter. Awesome. The moment I enter, I'm able to see that there are two users. The UI is getting updated. Now we are going to use this array to update our user list on the left hand side. I'm going to leave now. But when I leave, the list is not updated. Why? Because I'm not broadcasting again. I copy this. Whenever a user is leaving, after deleting the user, I have to again update the user list so that the UI knows who's leaving. Okay. Right. Save. Let's try again. I'll refresh. There's only one user for now. I'm going to create another user. This will be angular@gmail.com. Enter. Now the information is broadcasted. Now both of them will, if I open the log here, you should be able to see two users again. The moment I leave, the information is again broadcasted with only the online users. Offline users are excluded here. Now I can perfectly use this loop and list all the users in my UI, right? Heading over to the editor. Now I know that in the UI, this data will have the updated user list. Okay, perfect. Now, instead of logging it out, I would rather assign it to my user list here. This dot user list variable will hold the data, but this data is plain array. It does not have email. I need to modify this. I just need to set user here. That's it. Save it, refresh, and there you go. Now you see fullstack@gmail.com. Let me open up another incognito. There we go. Enter chat. Awesome. Now we see two of them updated, but the problem is something with the design here. I head over to my design. I'm supposed to run a loop on top of this, but I made a mistake here. Let me remove this and add a loop top of the wrapper. Okay, perfect. If I save this, the UI should be good. There we go. We have both users displaying on both the chat window. I can also open another window. We'll use Safari for that. Enter chat, and there we go. We are able to see three users in all chat windows. Perfect. And if anyone goes, let's say I'm closing this guy, he's gone. Now Safari and the first window in Chrome will have only the updated list of users, right? I'm closing Safari as well. Only one user is left. So we are able to update information in real time. Perfect. Okay. Now next thing is to send messages to the group. Okay. We'll take 5 minutes to finish this. We already have a method here, right? Send message. We are able to log the message when the user hits the enter key. Perfect. Now, what are we going to do here is we will use this .chat service .emit again. I'm going to emit a new message. This will be a new message key, and the data will be key will be MSG, and the value will be this user message. This is where our value is getting stored. Perfect. Now this is sent to the server. Now server should listen to this new message, correct? Head over to the server side and socket.on new message received, right? This is the data. Inside data, I have an object called MSG, right? I need to emit it to everyone. io.emit new message received. Then I pass data.msg. Okay, because I'm passing the actual message inside MSG itself, or I can simply pass the entire data coming from a user. Now, new message received should be listened by the chat client here. I'm going to add another listener. This dot chat service on new message received. When a message is broadcasted from the server, I will listen to it and update it accordingly. Let's first log and see the output. Refresh. Okay, I'd say hello. There we go. Now from here, the message is going to the server. From the server is coming back here. We're listening to it. Perfect. Okay. Now let's add a new user and try again. We'll call this nodejs@gmail.com. Enter. From Node.js. There we go. We have a new message again from Node.js. Now using this, we can update our chat messages here. Perfect. Let's close this. So for that, we need to have another messages variable, messages, which will have a string array only. Okay, you cannot add booleans or objects or arrays inside it, which is an array. Perfect. Now, what I will do is, because this is an array, I start pushing messages. This dot messages dot push of data dot msg, right? Object is in the value is inside this msg property. So it's data dot msg. Type over here. Okay, let's try again. If I say hello happened. Okay, it's updating, but we are not changing the UI, right? So where is a message? A message is here. Instead of this user message here, wait, I need to run this inside a loop. So for msg of messages, which is an array, track msg, I'll paste my HTML code. Now this will go inside a loop, and this is the email address of the user, and this is the time. But we'll keep email address and time constant for now. We'll only focus on this user message. MSG. Save. It's gone. Now I'll write hello, how are you? And hit enter. And there we go. We have it. Let's bring in a new user and try. Ignore the typo. Hey, message from Angular. Awesome. Let's say there we go. There we go. We have our messages. So we are able to communicate with different types of users, but still we have to do some kind of tweaking here. We need to erase this text after sending a message. So for that, after sending a message and broadcasting it to the server, I will do this. This dot user message is equal to empty message. I clear this message. Okay. Hey Angular, long time no see. Now the message is cleared from here. Hey full stack. Yeah man, how are you? There we go. Now we're able to check. Now the problem is that we do not have the user's email address, and we do not have the time at which the message was sent, right? So we head over to our thing here. When broadcasting a message to the user, right, to the server, so that all of the other users can read it, we need to some extra information. We also need to send the email address. We'll get it from the local storage. We also need to send the time. But date.now, what does date.now do? Hang on, let me just test it. What the date dot? It gives timestamp. Okay, let's head over to ChatGPT. Okay, and ask ChatGPT to write a function. Chat.openai. Write a JavaScript function to display current time in AM PM format. ChatGPT to the rescue. Perfect. Awesome. We'll just copy this and we'll create a new function here. Wait, we'll call the function as get date, sorry, get time. We'll paste this. What am I doing wrong? Oh, we already have a function set. Now it's perfect. You, hang on, I'm sorry. Okay, perfect. All right, so get time. So instead of time, I just date dot now. I call this get time function. That would give us a time in minutes, and we don't need seconds, right? I'll remove the seconds from here. Hours and minutes would suffice. Okay, fine, good. Is there any error? Oh, perfect. Now let's test this out. When a server receives a new message, we will receive it here and give it back to. We again broadcast this message to the message received, new message received on the UI again, right? In the UI, we are only pushing the. Okay, now messages can have the entire data, right? And what are we sending in the data? We have message, email, time. We are sending it to the server and receiving it back again. So using these three, we can show the email, message, and time. Head over to the UI. So it would be, we'll call this data. Now we have data.msg and we have data.email, and then we have data.time. Type by data. Okay, let's save it. We need to define the messages as any. Okay, perfect. The error is gone. Let's try again. I'm going to refresh again. Sending a message. Let's try. Hey, Angular. Awesome. Now we see that the email address is from full stack and the time is 12:03 p.m. Awesome. Now again, send a message back here. Hey, full stack. How are you doing, man? Now this message is from Angular, right? Fine. Now we have to store this in the database. Why? Because if I refresh my page here on the right hand side, you see my message history is lost, right? But due to lack of time, we are not able to implement database, right? We need to talk other stuffs as well. So I hope this clearly gives you an idea what a full stack development is and what are you capable of doing with Angular, Node.js, and a database. We'll discuss in the future as well. So basically, our ultimate aim of conducting this workshop is to offer a very comprehensive course, right? This course will offer you skills that you become job ready. You'll build a production ready app. We also have a curriculum here that I'll show you, right? So let me just open this up. So let me zoom it a bit, right? So we have this full stack curriculum. Okay, so this curriculum is a very carefully prepared for you guys to become job ready. The moment you come out of the college, most of you are students here, right? And we also have people coming from tech and non-tech backgrounds. Tech background people can be coming from software testing, or there might be a functional business user who want to opt to or dive into the development environment, right? So essentially, this curriculum is prepared for you to get job ready, right? You will build production ready apps. So basically, what I've learned in the last 13 years, I've squeezed everything and put here. I've learned a lot of unnecessary stuff, right? I don't want to prepare a very huge curriculum, make it look very good, nice, and appear cool enough. I've ignored everything that is not needed at all to get started. And I can assure you that because in ITET we have placed a lot of students. Our students have been placed in Zoho. They are in all the top MNC companies you can name, right? So our curriculum is prepared for you to get job ready. The moment you pass out and you go for an interview, you will be given the highest preference because you talk actual business there. Because this project is not only teaching some concepts and trying to implement that, we will start discussing on how to create user stories in agile methodology. We will first create user stories. We will prepare a draw IO plan. We will architect the application in a 3-tier architecture. We will also talk about how to set up caching for improving the performance of the application, right? We will also talk about how to host application on AWS cloud using Docker containers or using GitHub Actions for CI/CD. We will cover the end-to-end development flow here, so that when you go out of the college, you already know how a company functions. You already know how agile teams are managed, how product delivery is happening. You know how the business users communicate with your clients, right? There are a lot of other steps. You can see that we will share this curriculum in the WhatsApp group. Will essentially learn JavaScript, which is the fundamental of user interface, whether be it React or Angular or Svelte, whichever programming language. JavaScript is the ultimate platform to get started because your browsers only understand JavaScript. The benefit of learning JavaScript and TypeScript is that you will get to work on Angular and Node.js as well. Node.js is not a different technology. Node.js is essentially TypeScript and JavaScript itself. So by learning JavaScript and TypeScript, you can work on both React and Angular in the front end, as well as Node.js in the back end. You become, partially a full stack developer, right? So this is a curriculum for Angular and Node.js. And then as a bonus, right, we'll work or we will implement our final project, which is an event booking system using Razorpay payment gateway, right? You will use Nest.js framework, one of the widely adopted framework. Hopefully you guys would have heard about Java Spring framework, right? Spring Boot. It's the #1 framework in the world. Nest.js is an exact replica of Spring Boot. You learn Nest.js, you can also work on Java Spring Boot. There's no difference in between them at all. Okay, hardly a 5% difference. You will take 1 week to learn Java on top of it. So that's the benefit of learning Nest.js framework. We will implement a lot of things using Nest.js. And then we'll also learn database, right? Postgres is one of the top database, right? So Air Dubai, Air France, all of these people running airline industry having massive traffic to the website are using Postgres in the backend as a main database, primary database, right? Why? Because Postgres is 5 times faster than MySQL. MySQL is an Oracle database. Postgres is 3 times faster than MariaDB, which is one of the top open source databases available today. It's very fast. And on top of that, you don't have to learn Angular. Why? You don't have to learn MongoDB. MongoDB is a document-based database. Just like Cassandra, Instagram uses Apache Cassandra, processing over 80 billion videos and pictures a day. Likewise, there's MongoDB, which is used for data analytics. You don't have to learn separately. Why? Because Postgres database supports both SQL queries, as RDBMS, relational databases, as well as document-based databases. That is the plus and benefit of it, right? Once you learn Postgres database, you actually become a full stack developer. Perfect. Now, one more thing is that we'll build a final capstone project, right? This project, even booking app, right, will expose you to everything that you have learned, right? Starting from authentication, secure authentication using JWT, right? JWT is JSON Web Tokens, widely adopted for all the mobile apps, all the apps today. Name it, what, Instagram, or Facebook, or Snapchat, whatever it is. Everyone uses JWT authentication today, right? We learn that. Then we'll learn a lot of other stuffs. We'll implement payment gateways, see how to handle payments, how to secure payments with SSL encrypted technologies. Then we'll also build a separate admin dashboards to see how many events are listed. We'll build reporting systems. We'll export reports to Excel, a lot of other stuff. And we'll also finally use WebSockets for real-time updates. Will use push notifications, right? For example, if your app is closed, let's say you're using WhatsApp, you've closed WhatsApp on your phone, yet you still receive a notification when somebody sends you a message. That is called push notifications. We will also use push notifications, right? Not limited to that, during a project implementation, we will discuss a lot of stuff, right? What challenges I faced in my work, how we solved it, which technologies we used to solve it, which kind of algorithms we used. Everything will be discussed over there, right? So that's all from my side. I hope this session was very beneficial to you. Now it's time for questions. If you guys have any questions, shoot them out. We'll discuss now. Yes, I think we can stop the recording.
Yeah. Someone's asked, what about HTML and CSS?
See, HTML, CSS is understood, right? It's basically, we'll go through the HTML and CSS codes. That is not included in the curriculum. It is mandatory. That will also be covered. We will also
So,
look into Tailwind CSS framework as well on top of CSS. Guys, you can open your mic and talk.
okay, price for the course will be decided actually. We want to know how many are interested basically. That's how we do generally. We don't actually fix the price upfront. What we do is we actually see how many are interested, and if more people show interest, we reduce the price. That's how we go usually. So the price will be reduced depending on number of registrations. So we'll most probably share a form in the group. Okay, and we want to know how many are interested in attending this course, and after looking at the curriculum, you can register yourself. So after looking at the registration, we'll most probably tell you what the price is. Because the reason being, we want it to benefit most people. Okay. The recording will be shared, yes. We have been recording from the very beginning. So the recording will be shared in the group. You can go through it. So how was the session, people? Was it useful? So please say about that. Okay.
Elias, நம்ம mic enable பண்ணலாம்ல? They can also talk.
Yeah. Enable panel, enable ஆயிருக்கும். They can enable, they can open and speak. If you want to ask in
Guys,
Tamil also, you can ask. If you want to ask in Tamil, no problem. You can speak in Tamil. You can ask any doubts you have. Like
so
approximate
Aditi,
amount
yeah.
will be like 10 to 15. That's for the minimum people. So if we see more registrations, we reduce it.
See, actually, we are looking for the benefit of your people. Okay, if there are more registrations, we keep reducing the price so that more people get benefited by this.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank
the
you.
course, the duration for this course is 40 hours. So we will also create a poll where you'll be asked to select weekends or weekdays. If people are interested in weekdays, we can complete it sooner. If a lot of people are preferring for the weekends, uh, we'll go on a Saturday and Sunday, 3 hours each. However, this course will run from 40 to 45 hours, depending on the speed you guys are comfortable with. You can use Sublime Text. Sublime Text is a very lightweight tool, but Sublime Text has its own limitations. You have to download some extra tools to come in par with VS Code or WebStorm. Thank you, Kanan. Yeah. See, it is not limited to this chat application. I can actually show you a lot of other applications what we've built. We have built enterprise applications like Make My Trip, where you can book flight tickets, right? We generate PDFs for invoices, a lot of other things.
Ashi, can you share what are the projects you have worked on? Maybe so that the audience can know what kind of project you worked on.
Okay. I can show recording is stopped, right? Please
Record,
don't take pictures.
let me stop the recording 1 second. I'll stop the recording. Yes, it's stopped.